Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Nordic Championship 2019 summer season, brought to you, as always, from the Monster Energy DreamHack studio. We've got another action-packed day of must-wins from teams across the board as playoffs starts in only 1 week. My name's Lance Minot, and joining me today to bring you today's matches, I'd like to give a warm welcome to my man, Saga. How are you doing, Rick?
Hey, man, from the other side of the pond, all the way from the UK, I am here and I'm ready for some good League of Legends. Hit me.
All right. So before anything, I'd like to take a quick look at the standings. If we can switch over to that. Now we see some interesting things here, don't we, Rick?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first thing that stands out immediately is this three-way tie in the top place. And compared to the start of this week, the final tribe have climbed their way into the first position after taking their victory just a couple of days ago. So these guys have really made a huge push from being a little bit lower down in the standings to taking that first place spot away from Falkn and Ventus. And Falcon, we are going to see as our first game looking to defend that spot. But the other thing that really stands out is that 4 and 3 and 3 and 4 in the middle between fourth and eighth rather. There is five teams that are all within one series of each other, and they are all going to be looking to push as hard as they can because, like as you said, there's not that long left in the season, so they need to be getting those playoff spots secured for themselves as soon as they possibly can.
It's true, with all of these ties going on, every single win matters. And I don't even only mean match wins here, I'm talking game wins. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm guessing that that's quite a lot of you, since we haven't really talked about this. The ways ties are solved is that if two teams are at the same place in the standings, then we look at the head-to-head. But if it's a three-way tie or more, as the top three-way tie and the bottom four-way tie, we look at game percentage or percentage game wins. So if you have lost, but you lost in a 1-2 fashion, that's going to be better than if you lost your game in a 0-2 fashion. And I'm going to get back to this later on because it matters a lot, both for the Falcon matchup right here as well as the Icelandic matchup later on. Now, speaking of today's match, Falcon will be facing off against Copenhagen Flames. Now, we had question marks around Copenhagen Flames last week. While some of them were eased, most noticeably the ability to close out their games in a confident enough fashion, the match versus an on the rise Dusty was far from clean. The early game, the first two encounters was shaky to say the least, and luckily for the Danes, however, in game number one, Gooby and Kahira kept in it for long enough for Eden Fox and Nijhuis to become strong enough to pull off some cool outplays on the double assassins. I think we all remember that composition that they drafted. In game three, though, Young did Young things and did or caused a quick snowball to amass, which led to a 2-1 victory over the Icelandics. It does feel as though the team is a little bit too dependent on Young's early impact, however, and that seems to limit the draft phase quite a lot because if Copenhagen Flames select a low impact jungler early game, you can expect it to be a difficult task, especially since a consistently positive point for the team has been their neutral objective control within the first 20 minutes. And Saga, I feel like these two teams match up quite interestingly. So talk us through Falcon a little bit, will you?
Yeah, we absolutely need to keep our eyes on the jungle. As you've already mentioned, Young in game three in the previous series kind of just snowballed the game and took over from the get-go. And Skeeden on the side of Falcon, he's a very similar kind of style, although he can be more flexible and can look for the scaling picks. The Karthus, the Kindreds are things that we've seen him play on before, but where he fits the best and where he looks the most comfortable is on those early game aggressive jungle champions who can look to have a lot of impact in the lanes, shut down their opponents in the solos, and get his own solo lanes ahead. And we've seen Cries and Darkness, these guys get ahead, especially Darkness with those assassins that he always has in his back pocket. He can be very hard to shut down when they transition into the later stage of the game with their 1-3-1 compositions.
Yeah, Darkness has been looking fantastic recently, and as well as Cries there up in the top side. So the draft phase for this team is obviously quite interesting here, since they do put a lot of priority on their mid side, and they really have to close this one out in a 2-0 fashion. Because remember, uh, in the top of the standings, Falcon are, I believe, 12-3 in game wins or game percentage, I should say, and TFT are right above them at 13-3. So should they happen to 2-0 or even lose this match, they have to do it in a convincingly enough fashion to truly spiral away from the other top contenders here. Now, we are heading into picks and bans for the first game of the day. It is Copenhagen Flames versus Falcon, and for the first ban phase, we see a Kaiser Yumi as well as that Lucian. And on the other side, Irelia, Elise, and to be decided. Now, Rick, we are playing on patch 9.15. Which priority picks, in regards to the patch in particular, do you expect us to see in the first pick phase?
There's been a lot of changes in 9.15, but none of them were like huge that can take a character or a champion really into that step of being viable in pro play if they weren't already. It was just very little tweaks, mostly across the board. So I think really what we're going to see is a lot of focus on things that were already kind of high priority. And the thing that really was standing out for a second there is Falcon could have had the potential to go for the Sona Tom Kench. They've played it a lot of times so far this season, but instead they're going to take away the Rakan, get rid of that lovers duo bot lane synergy because that has been a huge impactful bot lane for a lot of teams in the tournament so far.
And it's interesting that we keep on seeing this high Zaya priority. She keeps on rocking this high win percentage up in the 75 pluses. So the fact that it's insta locked on the blue side can be a little bit surprising to some, but there's been so much priority on this champion throughout the tournament, and the fact that Rakan is the response is obviously quite telegraphed there with that Yasuo lock-in as well as the Aatrox on the other side. Now, Aatrox specifically for Copenhagen Flames, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, is very interesting because they tend to double flex it. Eden Fox adores this champion in the mid side. So when you look at Aatrox for Copenhagen Flames, you're more than likely to see it in the mid rather than in the top side, but there's still room for that flex since Nijihui obviously can play the champion also. Now, how does Yasuo, for example, go up against Aatrox? Who do you think has that matchup favored for them?
Really, Yasuo does very, very well into ranged matchups, which is he was kind of that original Gnar counter pick. You'd always see him in the top lane. Against melee bruisers like the Aatrox, he can certainly struggle in the earlier phases because he doesn't quite have the burst damage to get through those more beefier champions. And the Aatrox having so much sustain and so much damage as well, and he's going to be building more resistances, more hit points, more damage reduction into his build with Black Cleaver and Death's Dance. It's difficult for Yasuo to one shot an Aatrox, even though they've removed the revive. But when you have something like the Olaf, you can combine together with the Yasuo. He doesn't have the knockup in his kit like the Gragas does, so picks away that synergy for Copenhagen Flames. That's a really good pick away from them. But still, the Olaf can run down into the mid lane. Aatrox doesn't really have an escape. He has a very short dash built into his kit and a speed up. That's probably not going to be enough if there's an Olaf and a Yasuo running down onto you, dishing out a lot of sustained damage throughout a fight. But it's all going to depend on whether Young can get in and have the impact first and put this Yasuo far enough behind that the Aatrox can just take over the game. Or none of that could matter because it could, as you say, be an Aatrox in the top lane.
It could. It's obviously up to them how they decide to pull that one out and where they decide to place this Aatrox. And I adore the Olaf. Olaf has seen a resurgence in these last couple of weeks here, with many notable performances here on this champion. And you saw that triple kill a few weeks back, a few days back, I should say, by I can't recall exactly who it was, but we had some stellar Olaf performances, and you cannot underestimate this champion, even in the early game. As we scale into the later stages. So while he doesn't have that knockup, still going to be a power pick there in that jungle. Vladimir is going to be the second pick phase lock in there for Falcon. There is the slight tiny possibility here for a Yasuo Vladimir flex shenanigans could also go down in the bot side, right? A little bit unlikely to say at this point, but it's entirely possible. On the other side, Jarvan locked in potentially for the top side position here, or we could see some Gragas support shenanigans, but then again, it's all up in the air. We're gonna have to see which the final lock-in would be. But I would love an aggressive pick like a Jarvan for that top side. And this is just full of flex picks. The
Yeah,
Karma in
no
patch
doubt.
9.15, Rick, she was hit quite hard with all of these base shield amounts, right? I think it was like minus 30 at the later ranks. So where is it realistic that she goes, do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, first off, this is Copenhagen Flex making a reappearance, coming
Basically.
straight back in because there's four champions that could go realistically in a lot of different places. But interestingly, the Karma nerfs were more specifically focused towards the AP build. If you were to go top lane into what looks as though it will be the Vladimir, so maybe it wouldn't be the best option for it, but to go for the tank version of the Karma build, where you're building the Iceborne Gauntlet into the more supportive items, it doesn't actually hurt you that much because the supportive items give you that bonus shielding and heal power, which is where most of the priority of the pick comes from. But if you're building the AP version, the AP scalings is where the nerf really hit Karma. So if she's not building too much AP, it doesn't actually affect it that much. But the support build into a Vladimir is maybe not ideal because he will eventually, as soon as he gets one or two items, just shove you in and you'll never be able to win in that split push in the one versus one. And that is exactly what we've already said. Falcon loves to play that 1-3-1 split push. They're going to have the Sivir, they're going to have the Rakan together, probably with the Olaf, looking to just pick people off around the jungle while the Vladimir and Yasuo sit in the side lanes and just take over the map. They're constantly going to be pressuring towers because Copenhagen Flames team comp, they need to be relatively close together to really have that impact where you want the Gragas to initiate the fights. You need Aatrox to be in there as well with the Jarvan diving and the Karma keeping the Xayah safe in the backline doesn't necessarily work if there's only three members of the other team who aren't really going to be looking to try and take those team fights.
Exactly. Just as you said, they've Falcon have drafted themselves a fantastic 1-3-1 composition here, and Copenhagen Flames only have that Aatrox to send. It's going to be on the hands or in the hands of Eden Fox, I should say. And as you mentioned, Nishui's Karma won't have much to say about a potential one versus one in the later stages. So, what do you think is Copenhagen Flames' answer to this 1-3 on?
So realistically, when I see a Jarvan and a Gragas, you think team fights, right? They want something explosive to get kicked off. They want to lock people down, delete them at the start of a fight. And the best way to do that is to force around the objectives. So when you have the Gragas and the Xayah in the bot lane, you're probably not going to be able to shove that into the double range matchup of the Rakan Sivir. So you might see Eden Fox and Young shove in the mid lane early and then rotate towards the bottom side, try and have some impact onto Gooby and Kalhira, and then start taking the dragons very early and force Falcon to react.
And that is exactly what they do best, right? They love to play around these early neutral objectives, get those towers early on, and that is where Falcon sort of falters. Though this is sort of what I meant when they stylistically match up quite interestingly with each other. That Falcon, they have these super huge solo laners here on their side, whereas Copenhagen Flames, they tend to not be that strong without the assistance of Young, but at the same time, they've got that neutral objective control that Falcon perhaps lacks at in some stages of the game. But they are going up. This is a 3-4 team here going up against Falcon, who are looking fantastic. So Copenhagen Flames will have to work wonders if they want to come out ahead in this match. We are into game with Copenhagen Flames versus Falcon, and we see some defensive positions across the board. Do you think there's going to be some last minute shenanigans, perhaps some word placements, or do you think it's just going to be a stalemate for now?
Well, we see Young and Nihus making their way in towards the top lane. They've spotted out Skeeden, so they know he's going to be starting towards the top side of the map. Probably could have guessed that with it being an Olaf anyway. He wants to get that red buff, but they will know to play extra careful around the Karma in the top lane, just in case there is a level 2 gank opportunity for the Olaf in the top side to really get that lane snowballing as early as possible. So they get the ward, they get the information, and they're just going to back away and be satisfied with that. But see, yeah, Copenhagen Flames is probably one of the teams that we're going to be looking at because we say we have that 6-1 three-way tie at the top of the standings. If there was a team that could knock one of those teams out of contention for the top spot, it's definitely a team like Copenhagen Flames because yes, they have the stylistic similarities, but the differences in draft are so clear. Is that they want to play the game a completely different style, and if they execute properly, it can really be irritating if you want to play the split pushing style. You're just giving up objective after objective, and you just can't out push against a 5-man stack in the mid lane, knocking down all your towers as quickly as they possibly can.
It's quite difficult to answer when you only have 3 members there. Obviously, there are some rotations available to Falkn later on. So that word, I got the reply to the question as soon as I answered, and that sort of plays into the early pushing that we're coming in here from Eden Fox, and how you said he might interplay with Young later on. So when does Eden Fox realistically start to assist his jungler with these kind of invades onto the Olaf?
Oh, as he's pushing up the mid lane as heavily as he is now, and he doesn't actually have any vision of the jungle entrances other than his own jungle on the bottom side, he needs to be very, very careful that Skeeden does not just roam down and have a little bit of impact immediately into this game when the Olaf wants to start snowballing, getting things rolling in his favor. So he needs to shove in this lane and then just back away, play a little bit more safe, let Young secure his camps, and then maybe go for a little bit of a roam, make sure that he's securing the Scuttle Crabs, just make sure that the Jarvan is staying at the very least on par with the Olaf in the early stages of the game, and then they can maybe look for a play around the level 6 mark, where both of them have those impactful ultimates on the Jarvan and the Aatrox, and try and shut down this Yasuo, make sure that they hit level 6 first, and try and knock him down in the early stages. But could be Skeeden looking for a potential play towards the mid lane already.
Yeah, he's hovering there along the right side, but he is seemingly going to go straight for that Raptor camp, which Young has left open. Remember, Theoden is 1 camp behind, as it's actually Young who's looking for a little bit of a fight mid lane. He's walking in for it. Darkness dashes straight into the tower. Here comes Theoden, however, and I don't think anything's going to come out of this one, because there's just too big of a minion wave for Theoden to play around.
I think that's fine for Copenhagen Flames, just to avoid the potential of Skeeden getting in and turning that on its head for a potential turnaround counter gank. Just, yes, they put a little bit of pressure onto Darkness, so now he knows, okay, if I shove this lane in and I have a huge wave, that's not going to stop Young, so he needs to be a little bit more careful when he's pushing in the waves to make sure he has vision before he starts pressuring down on the tower plate. So he's always going to have that in the back of his mind now. And then Eden Fox, he feels much safer because he knows, okay, Darkness is going to be shoving my lane. I'm going to have the backup I need. And if Skeeden is there, we can just back away.
It's true. The testing the waters a little bit here in the early game, and seeing the responses, just to check the other team out a little bit, just giving them a lot of information to play with for future encounters. Now, we do have that early back coming in from Theoden as well as Young after that full clear, and they seem to be on opposite sides of the map. Kryze is in a little bit of an unfortunate situation here, but you know, you just gotta survive the early game against the Karma, and then you're pretty much fine, especially since Niju tends to go for the supportive kind of build here. And that's going to be quite important, because obviously when Kryze starts to farm up, starts to get the CS rolling, we've seen time and time again here that if you ignore this Vladimir later on, or throughout the mid game, and just leave him be, which seems to be the big answer, then he will just show up with a bunch of items and just one shot.
Oh, Young again in mid.
Yeah, I mean, we're on the mid side.
Looks it.
Young walks up. Nope, nothing gonna come out of it. A axe toss is all it is, Saga, and they're just gonna back away.
But again, as soon as Darkness starts to get some priority in this lane and starts shoving past the halfway mark, Young shows up. And it's putting so much pressure on this Yasuo because he wants to get in and have early skirmishes, because he knows the build that Yasuo goes, where he's likely going to go for the static shiv first, probably is not going to win in a 1 versus 1 against a Black Cleaver on the Aatrox. So he knows he needs to try and get the advantage now while he has the chance. But every time he tries to go for these plays, Young is always there. And it's really limiting what Skeeden can do. And we know that Skeeden, he's kind of the catalyst for this team. If he does well, the rest of the team does too.
It absolutely is so. Theoden showing up exactly where he needs to be, denying the gank attempts here by Young and trying to enable Darkness. But do you think perhaps that Darkness should adapt his build a little bit and not go for that static? Perhaps go for something like a Phantom Dancer, since he's going to be in the middle of Eden Fox and Young for quite a lot of this time.
Really, what the Yasuo lacks is the ability to push waves safely. Oh, but in the bot lane, this is a weird fight.
Very strange fight. Grand entrance lands onto Kalhira. Hueden was prodding a little bit in the river, but doesn't really want to commit for it. So a little bit of a love tap there from
Oh, the
the
dodge.
ex-lovers here. Meanwhile, on the top side, Nishuiz whiffs the, or I should say, Kryze dodges out on that empowered Q. So a little bit of a trade is going on across the board, but a pretty slow game so far.
Certainly is. Everyone's just making sure they want to pick up their first items. The bot laners have not recalled, so they're both sitting on a lot of gold right now. Almost 2,000 gold in the pocket of both AD carries, as well as Eden Fox in the mid lane, who hasn't recalled, but he's still getting the better of Darkness in the fights.
He is, and Darkness even dashes in straight up to take that tower shot. A little bit of an overcommitment there, perhaps a little bit of a sloppy miscalculation of the range. But it's looking rough for Darkness still. Eden Fox on this comfortable champion. So, 1 second, guys. There seems to be a little bit of an issue, so we will be heading to a pause. There we go.
All right.
All right, so we're not quite sure what's going on here, but we will be coming back to you in a moment or so when we have more information. So, the Infernal Dragon is going to be the first one to spawn Saga. Uh, which team do you think has the most priority as of now? Is it going to be the Eden Fox Young duo here through that mid lane, or will Falcon have some sort of reply?
Well, if you look at where Darkness is on the map, he's just recalled. He's been back. He's immediately bought Berserker Greaves and a dagger. So his damage is pretty low, but in terms of where he can be on the map, he can get there so much quicker with that additional move speed. So he's just walking straight down towards the mid lane. He's going to shove that in, and then he has the option to go wherever he likes. Eden Fox is still in the mid lane, and he hasn't been back to recall to pick up a single item yet. So he still needs to have that whole recall channel timer and then walk back to the lane. He has about 2,000 gold, so the items that he can pick up will probably be a little more impactful should they be needed. But again, it's Young who's just making his way out of the base right now. So based on where all of the lanes are, and on top of that, the Copenhagen Flames bot lane is just recalling right now as well. So there's a huge reset coming out from Copenhagen Flames. So there's a very slim timing where if Skeeden, and we know Olaf is a jungler that can solo out dragons very early on, if you were to go for something like that, that could be possible, but he's on the top side of the map at the moment, and the vision control from Copenhagen Flames is actually very good. They have a ward on the dragon. They know that Olaf can go for the early solo Drake attempt, so they'll be aware of it, and Young will be able to adjust his pathing should that be what Skeeden goes for, but instead he's up towards the top side. But again, there's just not much that he can do because there's so much vision control everywhere on the top side, in the river as well, picking up the scuttle crab for Nihus. So there really just isn't an option for Olaf to get into a lane and have some early game impact. And that's what he loves to do. That's how he enables the rest of his team to get the advantages. And it's just been shut down from really good safe play from Copenhagen Flames so far.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been quite safe indeed. But the window that you talked about there is sort of fleeting here for them because Hueden is on the other side of the map with that Infernal Dragon spawning as the recalls are coming in, as Young and, or I should say, Eden Fox still sitting on a large amount of gold. So there's gonna be a like if they want to act, if Falcon want to act, they have to do it sort of now, right? Because otherwise they will have missed that opportunity. If Eden Fox will come with a massive power spike whenever he chooses to recall. So in a straight up 4 versus 4, let's say 4 versus 4 or 5 versus 5, who do you think will grab this one with equal amounts of golden items?
Well, right now, if we look at Namex, in comparison to the CF bot lane, Namex is level 6. The Zaya is still level 5. She's recalling, and Skaden has just hit level 6 himself as well. So the ultimates are definitely in favor of Falcon right now, and they've only just come back into lane as well for the Sivir, and the Rakan does still need to go back. But Sivir has the item advantage, has the level advantage, and well, we've said that the Yasuo and the Olaf like to run people down. Severe presses are, they're going to run you down even harder. And when Xayah doesn't have that feather storm for that extra bit of safety, things are going to be a little bit dangerous for her if she doesn't hit level 6 very soon.
Yeah, so the level advantage coming in huge, and here we go. We are heading back into the game. TP is actually coming in for Gooby right now, down to the bot side. So he will be back. Hits level 6 right now, so he captured that crucial level up. Support, on the other hand, is choosing to go a different route towards that bottom side jungle, perhaps to clear out some vision or slap some down for himself here. Want to get control of that control ward. They are pinging it, but Young is not looking for it at all. So don't seem to have their eyes on that in Dragon just yet. Instead, perhaps looking mid lane.
Kalhira just walked over a lot of vision, and he must have known that the control ward was there, so they're looking for Lannister. He's just going to back himself away.
Yeah, neither team really willing to commit fully here. Yeah, Kalira will be able to just clear out this ward that spotted him early on, and some early Copenhagen Flames advantage across the Infernal Dragon area. And the window seemingly is lost as Eden Fox has picked up that Ninja Tabais on the triple longswords. He'll be very strong in the fight to come. Now, how will Kryze and Nijhuis perhaps influence these coming minutes? Will they look to use their teleports, or do you think either team is willing to forfeit this first dragon, or is it just straight up too important?
I think if it was a different dragon, I would say yes. If it was maybe a Cloud Drake, they would probably be fine giving it up. But as it's an Infernal and both teams are looking to scale, it's so important to contest. But Falcon, they get there first.
They do, and they just snatch it, and everything we've been talking about has sort of been thrown out the window here. Copenhagen Flames, they got that ward control despite that window from Falkn, and despite everything, Falkn just snatched it away, and that's going to be Infernal on the side of Falkn, and on a 4-threat kind of team comp. Okay, Olaf's not really going for that warrior build. That's going to help them out a lot with that scaling.
Yeah, but it all comes back to Copenhagen Flames going for that reset, where their bot lane was recalling, their jungler was in the base, and their mid lane still needed to go back and pick up the items. They had the timing for Falcon, they walked forward, they got the vision control, shoved in all the lanes, and then all 4 members were there on the dragon together, and the opportunity to contest just wasn't there. If Young had tried to dive in and go for the steal, it would have just been a free kill. And maybe he could have done it, but is it worth giving the first blood over to the team who wants to be snowballing, who wants to get the advantage? Or do you think maybe just play it a little more safe, maybe get some advantages for yourself and stop the scaling so the Infernal Drake has less impact?
You make some fair points there, Saga. The value of that first blood is definitely quite huge. And meanwhile, in the top side, River Young gets the flag and drag onto Quaden, but Quaden pops that Ragnarok, and it's Lannister who comes in with the ground entrance as well as the quickness. Eden Fox arrives. The Cataclysm is huge, but it's Darkness who picks up the first blood. All things said and done, Nijhuis is onto Gooby, or it's onto Lannister, I should say. Lovers duos perfectly split up. Come the last breath, the final breath. Darkness gets that kill onto, or he gets killed off actually before he manages to put down the damage, I should say, by Eden Fox. Eden Fox dies as well, so it's a 3-for-2 in favor of Falcon and potentially a Rift Herald with, crucially, Saga, Namix already positioned for the top side.
Yeah, wow. That team fight seemed to come out of nowhere. It seemed to just be a little bit of a contest for the Scuttle Crab trying to get some vision, but everyone collapsed. Kryze and Nijhuis teleported into that fight. But this is that supportive build Karma. She's gone for the Hextech GLP. She has the Glacial Augment as her keystone. So her impact in the team fights early on isn't necessarily as strong as it could be. But then again, you've already got the Infernal Drake, that extra little burst of damage to those who have built some damage items already. And just the running it down, again, it's just all that the Falcon comp needs to do is just have Olaf run at people. You can try and get the knock up with the Rakan and then combo that with the Yasuo ult, but I think a large part of what actually mattered in that fight is that the Gragas ultimate went wide. It didn't actually hit anyone. They weren't able to use that for the disengage. So the Yasuo didn't even necessarily need the Rakan. He just dashed in himself, spun his blade around in the team fight, picks himself up the first blood, and it's 3 kills for 2 in favor of Falcon. And they're pushing towards a 1,000 gold lead now.
Some early advantages coming in from Falcon across the board. They got everything they want, Saga. They got the Infernal, as you said. They got the Herald, the First Blood Gold, and everything. And now they're looking for more as Lannister and Huiran gets the catch onto Young. However, Young does have some assistance in the form of Nish Huiz. But Darkness wants more, and it's Nish Huiz who seems to be getting caught here. Nanex pops that ultimate on the hunt, but who needs it? Darkness catches up to Young, kills him off. Meanwhile, there's some counterplay in the top side. Huiran slays Nish Huiz down in the bot. And how much can Copenhagen Flames answer with here on the top side? Because I believe that Kreis will be perfectly fine holding this for a little bit of time at least.
Yeah, the difference really is you can't tower dive the Vladimir. You can tower dive the Jarvan, sure. You can tower dive the Karma, absolutely. But the Vladimir, he's just going to press W. He's going to sustain through a lot of that damage. And even in the 1v2, he's holding off so well. There's half hit points on both Gooby and Kalhira. And yes, he is very low himself. But look at that. He's going in aggressively and taking another big chunk out of the Gragas. So the only trade back is a couple of the tower plates, and now that 700 gold lead I was talking about literally about 30 seconds ago, that's now over 3,000 gold. That is that snowballing that we see from Falcon. They make one aggressive play, they get the dragon, they win the team fight, they transition to the bot lane, they get 2 more picks and take down the first tower of the game as well.
Amazing stuff from Falcon, just what we'd expect from a top contender here. Playing like a well-oiled machine and synergizing all across the board. Some interesting interaction there with Kreis and Kalhira. He actually pro-belt wave cleared just as Kalhira threw the explosive cast, so dodging out on Kalhira's ultimate as he was clearing the wave there a little bit aggressively. So good stuff coming in there. Second dragon of the game. Okay, Ocean Dragon. Ocean Dragon in the laning phase, Saga, is quite... a lot of teams seem to favor this quite high, but with first tower already gone, perhaps it won't matter that much, since the fights, as you said, seem to be so explosive.
Yeah, there's 2 main points in the game where the Ocean Drake matters the most, and that is, as you say, laning phase, and then in the later stages where everyone's doing that Baron dance, where everyone's just poking back at each other and daring each other to start the Baron, or daring each other to go for the engages. You can deal some damage to the Baron, it can deal some damage to you, and then you back away, you make sure that you're not being engaged on, you're not being run down by the Sivir Olaf, and then just regen back up. But when the Ocean Drake is on the side of the team that not only has the advantage, but has the team comp that can run you down, they can start the Baron, and then as soon as you look to go and contest with your strong team fighting composition, they can just turn off and immediately chase you down. And that is so scary if you're a team like Copenhagen Flames in this position, because Gooby needs to be on point with his ultimates, and Kalhira needs to start landing his as well.
Yeah, it has so far been a little bit lacking here by Kalhira, but they are still holding their own, at least to some extent, just being rotated around to soak up waves, trying to get some push going, but a little bit underwhelming usage of this bot lane so far. Seems to be clashing in the mid side. Actually, the Featherstorm procced or used there by Gooby just to escape Lannister. But they do manage to back away. So, reactive plays, it seems, by Copenhagen Flames so far.
This is what I mean when I say he needs to be on point with those cooldowns, because
he just gets straight up picked up.
Yep, that's why he needs to make sure that he's using his cooldowns effectively. He could have flashed away. He wasn't expecting that huge damage, and neither was I, to be honest. This Sivir just bursts him on the tower.
Yeah, the boomerang blade can be quite surprising. Gooby will confirm that. So a little bit sloppy there, just as we were giving them criticism. They do not use that crucial summon a spell to escape the situation, and that means mid tower going down and even further snowballing for Falcon. They're looking fantastic here, and as we pointed out time and time again, they want to close the series out as easily as possible, or as quickly as possible in a 2-0 fashion. This seems to be a good start. However, or actually Eden Fox flashes away early, but gets... Oh, wait, flash forward. Kreis? Oh, no. He still has pool, I believe. Does get out. So a little bit of an overreach here by Falcon.
Is worth a try. It doesn't result in the kill on Eden Fox, but it does burn his own flash as well, and that is a little bit more of the aggressive potential playmaking from Copenhagen Flames that is now taken away, as Kryze is probably perfectly happy to trade his flash in that scenario. You have the safety of Vladimir, you can press W, you have the Proto Belt, so you have methods to get away, but the Aatrox we touched on before doesn't really have that much of an escape option other than using his ultimate for the speed boost and a very small dash on his E. So the next time that he's getting run down by Skeeden, by Darkness, by Kryze, anyone's looking to chase him out, they're more than likely going to catch up to him, and he will probably go down if he doesn't have a turret available to use for a bit of a safe haven.
I would argue that perhaps the completion of Death's Dance will help him. Death's Dance are now reaching level 11 for that increased healing. You know, Aatrox as a champion doesn't necessarily, always mind you catching up to him, because we have seen Aatrox in the past, right? Just brawling it out and fighting those 1v2s and healing up just enough to allow teammates to arrive, or buying enough time for a cross-map play. So it all comes down to how well synergized Copenhagen Flames are, I suppose, to take advantage of Eden Fox and the amount of time that he can buy. But we're absolutely not looking at Eden Fox winning out in these situations. I would agree with that.
Yeah, and especially when you say how coordinated can they be and how quickly they can collapse. If you look at the vision control that Falkn have got for themselves, more so around the bottom of the map, but what route could anyone from Copenhagen Flames take to get towards the bottom side and help out with whoever's trying to deal with Darkness pushing in the bottom lane, where they're not going to be spotted a mile away and he can just back away, or they can call the rest of their team down with the teleports to turn it around on its head? There really isn't a way that they can get to that bot side of the map. The vision control here from Falkn has been so on point, and it's something that they've been criticized for in the past.
That vision control leads to one thing and another, and one of those is going to be Hweden killing off Gooby here in the mid side after a clutch engaged by Lannister. Hweden now chasing down. Hang on, Kalhira is going to escape. Yeah, oh, sorry, I mean Young doesn't. It's going to be Darkness who ignites him and knocks him down. 2 for 0. Yeah, Baron spawns in about 1 minute or 30 seconds, but I don't think that's realistic. Instead, going to look for that mid tower instead. And these fights just come straight out of nowhere, Saga, honestly.
Yeah, from Copenhagen Flames perspective, sure. But again, it's Falkn. They have all of the vision in the jungle. They don't know where the Rakan is. He can be anywhere on this side, and the one ward they have is on a vision ward. It gets taken down immediately by Darkness. So Rakan just comes out of the jungle, lands the W onto Gooby, and this is what we meant when we said he needs to be on point with the Featherstorm, the ultimate. The invulnerability needs to be there as soon as the engages happen, because if he's just a second late and the knock-up hits him and then he uses the ultimate, he's already lost 2/3 of his health, and then Skeeden can just run at him and finish him off in the back of the fight. And it's just another couple of kills picked up, turned into a tower, another dragon. This time it's the Mountain Drake. So really, the neutral objectives for Falkn is just setting them up to bait around the Baron. And if Copenhagen Flames come to contest, try and maybe get a steal or a team fight, they can turn around and steamroll through the fight. And if they don't, then they can just shred down the Baron, take the towers even quicker now that they have the Mountain as well, and just amplify the split push potential for their team.
Seems to be a lose-lose situation here coming in from Copenhagen Flames. Will have to tunnel around, re-establishing some of this vision, but Saga, it's so difficult when you got Lannister constantly sweeping the area. Look at the amount of control wards on the hands of the Falkn members here. They just got such a chokehold of whatever area they decide to put their focus on that it's quite difficult for Copenhagen Flames to really do anything.
I don't know if this is just because I'm a filthy support main and this is how I decide whether or not I'm winning a game, but look at the vision score between Kalhira's Gragas and Lannister's Rakan. 3 times as much for the Rakan. He's been everywhere, putting down these wards, clearing out the vision, and even the jungler as well. Skeeden has a large advantage in that sense over Young as well. The vision has been so on point for Falkn. Copenhagen Flames, they're not safe to walk in their jungle. Kalhira tries to place a ward, gets a big chunk of his health, and has to back away for doing so. And now, all of Falkn collapsing on Eden Fox in the top side.
Eden Fox is a little bit under trouble here, with Darkness and Lannister waiting right in front of him. Wasn't the full collapse here coming in from Hweden, but instead we'll just tell them that, hey, you know what? We're around, we're ready, we're waiting in the wings, ready to pull the trigger should we want to. But luckily for Eden Fox, he did have some team members or teammates just around the corner as well.
Gooby just lost half of his health and had to go back to base because Namex hit him with 3 ricochets off of the minion wave. Not even auto attacks, just ricochets. That's insane.
The poor guy can't catch a break. Yeah, Sivir, when she starts rolling, got 75% crit chance now, and obviously the ricochets, they can crit as well. If that's the story that's being told right now, it's a gloomy future for Gooby indeed. Oh, actually, on the
Oh,
hunt,
this might be the chance.
mid, just to get away though. Copenhagen Flames, they're trying to look for something mid lane, but that single ultimate by Namix is just straight up enough.
But isn't this just exactly the way that Falcon wants to play the game? They have a group towards the top side, split pushing, 2 in the mid lane. As soon as they see a potential that Copenhagen Flames might go aggressive, they use their ultimate, they back away. And it just secures them another free tower in the top side. That's 5 that they have now, and now they can start the Baron dance.
The Baron dance or the Baron slaughter is down to 3,000 HP, and it's one of the best Barons that we've seen in the tournament. Actually, meanwhile on the wayside, Namex picks up a kill onto Young, but there's a trade back. However, Guidan is hungry, tosses the axe and runs after him. Ragnarok comes in, but can he really 1v3? I'm not quite sure. The Ignite's ticking. However, Darkness wants some more, but he's overcommitted. Goes down to big shutdown, also picked up by Eden Fox. Copenhagen Flames, they're striking back. Yeah, they lose the Baron, but at least they get 3 kills in return.
Yeah, so that could have been much, much worse if there was just a little bit more synergy between the Falcon members, because Darkness didn't get his ultimate off in that team fight. If he was able to combine that with a grand entrance from Rakan, that could have been a complete wipe. That could have been the end of the game right there, but instead, he doesn't manage to use that key cooldown in the Yasuo kit. And it will mean that Copenhagen Flames can fight back in the team fight. They do lose Young, as, I mean, just look at how much vision he had to walk across to get there. He gets blown up before he can even get close to stealing the Baron for his 4th death of the game. But they do manage to pick up a few kills on the back of it, which is super important because a lot of the shutdowns that were available, the bounties, have now been collected. Only Namex still has his available, and it's a big one. It's a real big one.
It is, and if they can close that gap, and bait out the on the hunt perhaps, and then try to get on him afterwards. There is a lot of gold to cash in on for sure, but realistically, do you really think they can? Kalhir would have to land some insane explosive cast score, Young with the Cataclysm and follow-up. It just feels so difficult for Copenhagen Flames to craft themselves such a perfect situation, don't you think?
I think if they're able to just start getting some vision control back in their favor, or just get this fight around the objective, it's possible. But will it matter though if you have Cries in the top lane shoving and Darkness in the bot lane?
Well, we're about to find out. I guess Young in the middle of 2 gets the Cataclysm onto Namex, but Namex kills him off beforehand. There is that grand entrance and last breath combination. It's a quick ace of a 3-second team fight, perhaps. The TP comes in by Namex down to the bot side, and they seem to want to push for at least inhibitors.
Yep, that'll do it. If you're Falcon, that is exactly what you're looking for. You have the split push pressure. Young sees, okay, there's only 3 members here. I can try and get that huge bounty on the Sivir. I can try and lock down this low range AD carry and get a quick kill. But Darkness is already roaming up. Cries teleports onto the backline, and it's too much damage. They just burn through Copenhagen Flames.
Copenhagen Flames are lit up and burn down as Falcon take game number 1 in this crucial series for playoffs. Man, what a first game, Saga. That last team fight was absolutely explosive. I can't even. They finally got all of the synergies that they needed with that Yasuo and Rakan engages, and absolutely beautiful, honestly.
Yeah, and the teleport in the back line from the Vladimir was so nice. He landed the Hemo Plague on so many members, and it's just too much damage. They were 7,000 gold behind when they got drawn into that objective team fight. And Falcon, this is exactly why they're looking like one of the scariest teams in the competition.
Falcon are looking strong, and Copenhagen Flames did not really seem as though they had many answers. The early snowball got rolling, but what would you say, or what do you think is the prime focus point for Copenhagen Flames when it comes to adapting to game number two?
Well, it's weird because they did a really good job in the early stages of the game of keeping Skeeden down, of making sure that he couldn't have impact in the solo lanes and get them snowballing ahead. But they kind of let up on that a little bit and slowed down with their control. They weren't placing anywhere near as many wards in the early stages. And as soon as that first Drake was picked up, and then they tried to answer back with a Rift Herald on the top side and got collapsed on, they didn't see the collapse coming. And it was just 4 members strong of Falkn who got that 3-for-2 team fight victory in the top side, which was scrappy and it was messy, but it just gave that little extra bit of gold to the members of Falkn who needed it to start taking over the game at that point. So they just need to make sure what they did for the first 10 minutes of the game was really good. But just make sure you keep sticking to it because the vision control really let them down in the latter half of that game.
So, after this short break, ladies and gentlemen, we will find out whether or not Copenhagen Flames can clench their fist after scratching lightly in the early game and see if they can keep doing exactly what Saga expects of them now for match number two. We'll see you in a few minutes. Stay right there.